Have you noticed how many people out there are healing and likely struggling with life?
Whether or not people are actually talking about it, a lot of people are, and you might even be one of them.
If you're living the medical medium lifestyle, you may be doing the foods, the tools, the supplements, and still feel overwhelmed by the life part: relationships, motherhood, identity changes, nervous system, purpose, and the quiet fear of, is it just me?
You're not crazy, you're not weak, and you're not alone.
I'm Eileen. I'm an older mom, a writer, former architect, and medical medium information helped me save my life, and my family and I have been living this way since 2012.
And I'm Amy. I'm an autism mum, a home educator, formerly worked in advertising, a near-death experiencer. We've lived medical medium since 2015.
Medical medium gives life-saving information.
And here we support the life part so you can stay with it, trust yourself again, and come home to who you truly are.
Welcome to the Rewild Renew, soulful discussions of life and truth. Hi, everyone. Here we are with another podcast, and we're talking about light and dark today. And we're going to get into a lot of different spiritual subjects because that umbrella reaches a lot of different spiritual things. And so we have a list for you. We're going to actually answer some questions that we've gotten from you guys, some really cool questions. I got a little bit of more research that I'm going to share with y'all. And let's do this, Amy. What's our first thing we're going to talk about?
Yeah, well, it kind of picks up the conversation where we left it off, which was when we were talking about death and dying. So if we didn't lose you there, we're going to keep going. Because and just going so far, that we're going to talk about lots of different things, as Eileen said, but just we want to talk about how darkness is deliberately taking the sacredness away from death. That process is your God-given right. It's your God-given right to die. And there's some scary stuff that's happening in the world right now that is taking that rite of passage from you. As birth is also one of those rites of passage as well. But let's kind of keep focused here, Amy. Let's keep focused, because Eileen, I think you found out some interesting things about this, didn't you?
Yeah, so I'm going to connect this back. I'm going to talk about technology for just 5 seconds. But I'm going to connect it back to the information we were talking about, New Age information. Again, we're not telling anybody what to believe, but a lot of new information, if you didn't get this from our conversation, kind of collapses a lot of spiritual beliefs. Judaism, Christianity, Islamism, it collapses it because those spiritual beliefs are within a larger context of the journey of a soul. Whether it's life before and life after this life, there is this concept of the soul being part of a bigger concept. And a lot of New Age beliefs collapse that. It's all about this life. And so there's a technology is also attempting to collapse that. And I'm going to give you a little bit of information. And I'm going to say again, I am not an expert. This is just my hobby. And we'll talk about how I research. But I really want you to not trust me. I'm just bringing up things that I've found. And I want you to go figure it out for yourself. Whether this sounds right to you or if something catches your eye, please go look it up yourself. So I'm going to tell you that there's a guy out there named Harari, and he wrote a couple books. My husband's read them both. One was called Sapiens. One is called, oh my gosh, Homo Deus.
Homo Deus and Homo sapiens, yeah.
Right. And so he's a historian. He's Israeli, but he's actually an atheist. And so his first book was just about humans' evolution. And his second book, Homo Deus is Latin for man god. Literal translation is man god. And he says things like technology is going to solve the problem of death. This
Mhm.
idea of soul and free will, that's gone. He believes this. So that is collapsing Christianity, Judaism, all of that stuff. And so I'm not telling you to be scared of technology. I'm telling you that this is what some people are promoting about technology, transhumanism, this idea that technology will hack humanness. And there's also this concept out there that, as though death needs to end, that we need to be here forever, and death needs to come either a lot longer away or not at all. I want to die one day. And so I think it's just really important to have that discernment. There's even a man who was a lead engineer at Google, and he has officially filed and has a church that he is starting, has started, it's in existence, where he worships and he thinks people should worship AI to become a godhead. So, if you're not familiar with the term Godhead, it's a Middle English word and it means kind of the essence of God. So, like in Christianity, there's the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost are separate entities, believed to be separate entities, at least in the Catholic Church. The Godhead is that essence that's in all of them. So, this man is starting a Godhead church because he thinks AI should become the Godhead. Okay, so these things are out there. Are these people nuts? I am not here to say that. Is that what I want? Nope. So I'm just going to use some discernment out there. And when it comes, this is why one of the reasons Amy and I are always saying, get to know yourself, get to know your soul. What do you believe? What is important to you? What are your priorities? And this whole idea of free will, a lot of people kind of don't really understand spiritually what that means. So, my belief is that free will is that what the choices you make in this life have something to do with your soul in the larger context, right? It's just not just about, fighting your neighbors because they want something different than you want. It's about living, making the choices, conscious choices of how you live in your daily life. So we just wanted to put that out there as a connection to, you know, is technology bad? No. Is there an insertion of darkness in it? Yes. And that's the discernment you want to use moving forward. Does that make sense, Amy?
Yeah, I mean, I like the link to the Angels, Demons, and Spiritual Tools audiobook where Anthony says the people who become the family derms, the derms of the family tree,
Hmm.
they're usually the really old guys and women as well. They didn't want to die.
Hmm.
They just wanted to stick around as long as they could. And he talks about this, it's always been outed, but it's kind of been outed in fiction, but like this fascination, um the powers that be have about living forever and
The
the
fountain of
cryogenics,
youth. I mean, it's an
the
old
fact,
concept, right?
yeah, and like, there's like the billionaires now, they're like trying to freeze themselves and do all this kind of stuff, because people don't want to die, and they're trying to, by usurping death, they're
So
usurping
one of
God.
these guys out there, who actually is one of the engineers for AI, is already made arrangements to have his brain frozen so it can be uploaded into technology when that is available, right?
I mean,
This is where these
yeah,
people are.
and it's trying to um usurp God. So, like, I really do appreciate that everybody listening doesn't have Christian values. I'm going to
Yes.
talk a little bit about some of this, because if you are following Medical Medium, he's put out the Revelations podcasts. This is from the Bible. This is from the Christian faith. And he talks about um how Satan is the fallen angel who who believed he was more powerful than God. There's themes here of like cheating death, cheating God, and
Man
being
becoming
more
God
powerful than. Yeah,
or
you know the,
technology
the
becoming God.
and this is the thing that I think is important to become aware of with light and dark. It's always the same. Like when I'm speaking to people and they're coming to me and they've got chronic illness, and I'm like, what have those, what has the illness done? What is the darkness of the illness? Because those illnesses, those viruses and those toxins, they're dark. What are they doing? They're silencing a person. They're pushing them into the shadows of life. They're making them be forgotten about. They're making them feel forgotten about. They're making them feel isolated. They're, you know, it's always about taking away power, taking away your sense of faith and things like this. Like there's always themes to how darkness behaves. And I think when we start to think about light and dark in those terms, it becomes easier to spot when you
Yes.
just look at the patterns, when you just think, yeah, this is about outdoing God, like
You know,
taking away the right to die.
Amy, I was having this conversation with my husband about these books because he's read them and I was curious his thoughts on them. And my son, who takes Latin and loves mythology and all that, comes running in and he's like, oh, he says this thing, Deus ex machina. It's an old Latin term, and it means God from the machine. So I looked it up. He's like, oh, it's this theme of technology, and it's not really. It comes from ancient Greek theater. So when they were having like a god fly in, they invented this machine that would drop the actor into the stage as though God was flying in. And that's where the term came from. And then it turned into this phrase that meant when some solution would show up that you didn't realize, you had no idea where it was coming from. They would call it God as the machine. And that's exactly where technology is right now. Like you said, it's old. It's not like this idea of AI becoming a godhead. It's not a new idea. It's literally an ancient idea, as though humans can somehow surpass God.
Yeah, and let's not skip over the fact that Anthony has said that at some point in the future, a soul will enter AI. Now,
Mm.
will that happen? We don't know, because sometimes Anthony is issuing us warnings about things, and the trajectory has changed thanks to God, right? Thanks to the
Right.
light that stands in the way of darkness. So will that happen? I don't know. So, let's not worry about that right this moment, but
Yeah.
let's take back the power
Yes.
that is being
Because
trying
that's
to
how we
be
have it not
wrenched from you.
happen. Yeah.
Yeah, that this, power, trying to take power away from you. So how do you hold on to that power and strengthen that power? Because there really truly is hope. I personally have a great deal of hope for the future. I think that we live in a really important time, and I think it's important to maintain that hope. And I was just saying to my husband just before I jumped onto this podcast, I say, you look at history, the change happens when things become very, very difficult. When things are just a bit shit, change doesn't happen. When things get really intense and really difficult, change happens. And I do have a lot of hope for change personally. So I'm just saying that because I know, people are listening with varying degrees of illness going on, and this isn't doom and gloom. This is about standing in the light and knowing, as my phrase, knowing the game you're in. Like, see what's around you, spot the patterns so that you don't get robbed blind and you don't have your power taken from you, and you didn't see the darkness dressed in the pretty gown coming at you, and you stay where you need to. Which is why we wanted to have the conversation about death, because it might seem that it's one thing, but actually it's an empowerment, and it's a God-given right. It's quite a different way to think about it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, we got a few other things that we want to talk about. Shall I go into the next to evolve us on from
Yes.
talking about death, Eileen? Yeah. So, um, I wanted to talk about, because we are kind of talking about it as already, is demons.
Mm.
Demons, like, some of you have listened to Angels, Demons, Spiritual Tools. Some of you are like, that's not for now, that's for another time, or I'm just not there. And that's fine. That's you got to listen to yourself and and act accordingly to what you need to do. But demons is something that Eileen and I have always talked about, but we would talk about it quite delicately until it was more outed with the Angels, Demons, and Spiritual Tools audiobook. Because really, you can talk about it very delicately. Like, you can just say, you can talk about the fact that someone doesn't quite feel like themselves. It doesn't sound like I'm you. It doesn't sound like you I'm talking to right now. Who is this person? Like, you can say it in jest. You can do things like this, um, we do want to talk about demons and what that feels like and how that impacts a person's life versus something in something that in the shamanic world is called extraction, something that in the energy world can be thought of as energy healing, but essentially it's moving beyond things like trapped emotions. Sometimes we are holding and harboring soul wounds, and we would call them soul wounds, wouldn't we, Eileen? Like we're holding on to soul wounds, and they kind of just resonate within us, and they get sort of
Well, and
set off.
Anthony's even taken that description deeper by telling us that we have, old adrenaline in our livers, even from things that happened to our mothers and their mothers' mothers. And so there's actually a physical aspect to this as well.
Yeah, that's it, because the adrenaline stores the memory, and so that adrenaline carries the information of these wounds. And for a very long time, people have also sought to sort of heal these energies that people are, and these sort of memories and these stories that people have been carrying. And that is, just wanted to put that distinction up really between feeling something like that and being influenced, or being influenced by something like that. If you
Right.
have a story of abandonment, it influences the relationship choices that you make, the job choices that you make. Do you move home or not? Like it just tells a story about your life. If you have a demon around you, it influences the relationships, the job choices, the house moves. It
In a
influences
slightly
those things
different
as well.
way.
If it wants to, yeah, if that's the thing it's going after, but they're coming from different sources. What would you say to
Well,
that
one of
so
the things
far?
I want to say about, because the word extraction, that's a shamanic term. It sounds weird and I don't know. And
Yeah.
we've learned to do extractions from people, but a more common word that everybody knows is emotion code. Same thing. And I want to get back into what Anthony says about it. Like, you don't even have to know that it's there. If you're cleaning your body out, those things are just going to go. No shamanic ceremony required. This is why we really want to stress that there's all of this stuff out there and these terminology, but really, one of the reasons I love Anthony's information, it's just bringing us back to living in a daily way that keeps our body clean, it keeps our soul clean, it keeps us protected from those dark things, and that it's a natural process for emotions to get stuck and for us to release them.
Yeah.
So I want to just say that first. It's just a natural process, and tapping into it will make it bring some more peace and ease around it. So yes, I think Amy and I have something we ask people all the time. Is it yours? Is it old? Is it relevant? You could add to that, is it demonic? I think I've noticed since the Angels and Demons book came out that people want to blame everything on demons. It's
Yeah.
all demons, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so this
There's
is again why we're asking people to build discernment, because discernment takes time. Discernment is something that's felt in your body. It's known in your soul. It's a multi-level thing. It's nuanced. It's big stuff, and so I think taking the time to ask yourself those questions, to do some of that exploration of, is it demonic? Is it old and just trying to leave? Then can I find a way to feel safe and comfortable to let it go? Is it something that needs to process? Do I need to understand something about it? Is there a message in it before it goes? These are all things I think learning some discernment around it is takes the fear out of it.
Yeah, yeah. And like to your point that cleansing will help with these emotions, like Anthony talks about anger and the liver. And lots of people have had healing stories where their anger becomes becomes less, and then also the mental health stuff that is existing so much in the brain, the depression and the stuff that's happening in the emotional centers of the brain, and anxiety, like so many of these kind of things are just going to be cleared up. physically, but you when you cleanse, sorry, that is. But there is still sometimes a need. Some people get huge relief from, they feel, and this usually comes from a really intuitive place within them, from honing in on that alongside their cleansing as well.
That's
So I
right.
just didn't want, like, if you are feeling called to that and pursuing that or finding relief from that, this is how I dealt with my near-death experience trauma. I
I've
was like, I did
I've
it
done all
myself.
kinds of work like that, right?
Yeah, and for me it was the one thing that just put the ground back underneath my feet, and it was just, and I did it on myself, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, we're back to business, and I
I
could move
also want to
forwards.
say, again, if you're looking for help with these things, find the right person to help you with. Make sure
Hmm.
there's an alignment there. But sometimes I think it is really important to have support. Amy, you and I have talked about a lot. If you're in a place where you can't really hold on to your sovereignty in a moment, it's because of trauma you've been through, because of how sick you are, you really may need support through that kind of process. You also want to make sure that you're doing those processes, those extractions or emotion codes or whatever, when you're ready for them. And so you need to trust your own discernment about when you're ready to do it. I mean, the first time anybody was long before my training, but the first time I had anybody do emotion code, I mean, my reaction was so extreme, it scared the practitioner. So, again, like know yourself, know where you are, know how you react to things, know what your sensitivity levels, get the right person to work for with on it. This is, discernment all around. There's no one way here.
Yeah, you see, I can feel myself getting what I would call fired up, but maybe triggered is more the right term, because I just get so very upset when, and I'm not going to go back into it because we've already covered this, but when people are are stuck in the loop of darkness stuff with a practitioner, if you
Mhm.
are endlessly talking of, now let's take this demon, and now let's take that layer, and now let's this soul issue, and now if there isn't any light peppered in there, like, just set the alarm off someone, because, like, the way that I like to work, and some people here have worked with me, the way I like to work with pushing out darkness is with light. I like to use the light that's always there in the picture, and I like, so of course there's the spiritual lights of free will that are very great, like really powerful, and a prescriptive way to use them. And when I'm helping people with that, I have my little methods of helping use light to push out darkness. Don't just, so, like, as Eileen said earlier, like, not everything is about demons. There is a whole other
It's
aspect of,
real, but it's
it's
not.
real. It's real, and it's having a large effect on this world in general. And there's the light, and like, we mustn't forget, and some of the things that you're experiencing is the privilege that you were given to experience this world, even the hardships of the world, and the beauty, and discover the beauty in the struggle, so that you would grow your soul. And of course, darkness interferes with that, and darkness will twist it and poke at those sort of wounds when it wants to. But some of that is your experience of life that can teach you so much. So there is this sort of really subtle kind of nuance separation of trapped emotions and things that you've been through, and it could just be like clogged livers as well, versus demons, you know causing
And
mental torture.
being empathic and not being a victim in that. Like,
Mm,
I actually worked with a person who was so deeply empathic and really no understanding around it that she literally figured out she spent 2 years in therapy for a problem that wasn't hers.
yeah,
It sounds funny, but it's not.
yeah, yeah,
So this is the getting to know yourself and not being actually a victim of your sensitivity. Is it yours? Is it relevant? Like these are really, they're not non-important questions to start to ask yourself and to start to build that discernment. And, I said to a client recently, I was like, you don't need me anymore. you've got this. And they were so appreciative of that. I had my grievance counselor say that to me once. I love the man. I love going to talk to him. And he's like, we don't really need to do this anymore. You're fine. Go fly, right?
Yeah.
So yes, if you've got somebody catching you that in that loop, weekly sessions forever or always drumming up some new darkness to handle, it's not my cup of tea.
Yeah, and like sometimes people need extended support.
Of
I
course,
got some people that I'm working with extended support. Are we talking about demons all the time? No,
no,
we're really not. We're talking about the person. You got to keep the focus on
and life
you.
skills
Yeah,
and how deep they are perhaps in their physical illness so that the capacity to handle certain life and certain things without support grows slowly.
yeah. So it's really really nuanced what we're saying here because you're never really far from um you, you're never far from darkness and its influence in this world, just the way that it is right now. It's true. I remember some years ago, I was remembering just the other day, Anthony said some years ago, like really, like pre-lockdown, how that's how we define time now, isn't
Yeah.
it? It's like pre-lockdown and post-lockdown, like years before lockdown. He said like darkness is running the show. And I was like, oh, it was like being punched in the stomach. I was like, oof, when I heard it, I was like, really? Like now I'm like, yeah, duh. We just had a worldwide lockdown. We've had so much kind of madness happen. But I remember hearing that at the time. Like, now you realize you are never really far from that conversation, which is all the more reason to harness the light, to use the light, to focus on the light. Because where does darkness want you to place its attention? On the darkness. It wants you to be in fear of it. So if you are putting your attention on it, don't be scared of it either. Like easier said than done, I appreciate, but I'm just saying if we can get to that place where we're not scared of it, all the better. And just know that it's weak and it's pathetic, then then you're winning.
It's really its power isn't trying to trick you.
Yeah,
Somebody's got to
yeah.
trick you. They don't actually hold much power.
So this kind of like leads us into, someone asked us to discuss this as well on the podcast, talking about being able to discern intuitive thoughts versus thoughts from darkness. So as I said earlier, actually, like look for the patterns, and it popped into my head when Eileen was saying the person that she knew that spent 2 years in therapy for a problem that wasn't actually hers. I was like, my head just goes ping with patterns because that's how my brain works. And I'm like, the pattern here is just keeping you busy and tied up in something that is not yours, so that you're not really getting on with the business of your life. But this same thing applies here when discerning between intuitive thoughts and dark thoughts, intrusive thoughts, demonic thoughts. Is what is the pattern? What is that thought actually saying to you? Is it a fear-based thought? Is it destructive? Is it moving you? Is it breaking trust with yourself? Or does it come from a place of compassion? And hard things can be said in compassion. Hard truths can be said, like, you're not ready for this. Like, if, to use myself, you're not ready for this,
Which is
Amy. You're
different
not.
than you're not worthy of it.
Right. Absolutely. So, I always try and distill things down into the simplest terms. And I think, what does compassion say, and what does darkness say? What is, like I was saying before, darkness wants to push you into the shadows, quieten you down, make you feel powerless. Like, does it have that theme going on? So that's how I would very quickly decipher those thoughts. What would you say to this as well, Eileen?
Well, I would concur. I often say people, if compassion was a person, would compassion say that? And that becomes really easy. Oh gosh, no, like that is not compassionate. And as Amy says, sometimes compassion says tough things, right?
Yeah.
Um, so that's a really quick analytical way to do it. But I think kind of what we've been saying, or I've been saying, um, the getting some of it takes time and asking yourself questions and building your discernment because sometimes it's felt in the body. And sometimes it's a knowing, and sometimes it's both, and sometimes people get actually physical reactions. I'm one of those people. So over time, you can even play tricks with yourself, like tell yourself a lie and see how you feel. Tell yourself a piece of truth, see how that feels different in your body. You can kind of play with it, and it sometimes it can be really subtle, sometimes it can be really obvious, but over time when you're focusing on trying to build that discernment, you start to get it. So like my son came into my room last night and he was talking about his trip to Italy, and he said, "Mom, guess what two places in Italy had the most ghosties and ghoulies?" Just a term we use. It's, kind of a joke. And I said, "The Colosseum and the Vatican." And he's like, "Yes, how'd you know?" So I said to him, "How did you perceive them?" And he's like, "It's just a feeling I have." And I said, "Could you perceive negative ones or germs different from angelic ones?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "How?" And he's like, "I can't explain it. It's just a feeling I have." There's often not words for what we know or feel. That's okay. It doesn't mean it's not true. So, my son's grown up with me, so this has been a part of his culture growing up. So, he's aware of it, but just begin to feel in your body and all of that kind of stuff, and you'll build the discernment around what's an intuitive thought versus what's not an intuitive thought.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And getting to know yourself allows you to know your cues and your signals, and you just kind of have a sense of what that feels like. So then discernment becomes this quicker process. You,
It's actually
I,
how psychic skills for me work. I can get on a client call and I suddenly have a pain in my right knee. And I'll say, "Do you have problems with your right knee?" And they'll say, "Yes, I do." Because a pain in my right knee isn't mine, but I can tell you the pain in my right knee there's a subtle difference between when it's mine and when it's not mine, when I'm feeling it into somebody else. So again, this is like the practice, and the over time you start to the subtleness of the difference of those things starts to feel really different. Or
yeah,
like I remember getting in an Uber, and suddenly I was like, a thought came into my head, and these kinds of wild thoughts used to come into my head all the time, and I would just ignore them as weird thoughts. But I said to the woman, it was a woman Uber driver, I said, um, "Do you have a sister who passed?" Like suddenly I just felt that presence of a sister, loving sister. And she's like, I said it out of the blue, and she said, "Oh my gosh, yes." And I said, "She passed in an unusual way, and her daughter." And I don't know why, because I don't do that kind of work, but I just was able to be that messenger for her in a moment when she really needed it. And so there was a time when I would have completely ignored that. And sometimes the ignoring it feels really uncomfortable
mm,
because those messages are coming for a reason and in a certain time. And so I think the other reason to start paying attention and learning your discernment around these things is because sometimes those messages are actually really important. And when you ignore them, that begins to feel bad. And then it gets more and more confusing about, is it feeling bad because I'm ignoring it, or feeling bad because it's coming from a bad place?
yeah. This is one of my little, favorite things to do. I bet you're the same, Eileen. But like, when you're with people that are strangers to you, an Uber driver or whatever, but just being able to sort of like have a little, just say something, not for the fun of it, not for the thrill of it, not to like prove anything, but from like, what would make this person feel better? I like to do
Yeah.
that with my food delivery people. When we get like food delivered from the supermarket, and there's this one guy who lost his wife recently, and so I just like, he's an old guy, and he's on his own, he's got children, but he's mostly on his own, and he just kind of tells me about it, and there's things that I can say that I know that he needs to hear, and there's things that, you know, that I can offer him. And it's just, it's a few moments in a person's day that would otherwise be solitary. And I think this is what it is to be human. I know I say
Yes.
that all the time as well,
Yes.
but it's what it is to be human. And like, this is the discernment process, is that like when I talk to people, I'm sort of aware that I can change the, like, the zoom in and zoom out. So I was zoom in on a person, and then I'll say to myself, as some people, right, now feel everything around them, and then I'm like, now feel the family connections, feel, and now feel the derms, where are the derms, and I'm just getting this, like, I'm building up, and I realized at some point that I'm kind of doing it almost, I was doing it, so I suppose unconsciously, until I became consciously aware, oh, this is my process, this is what I'm
Exactly. Spent my
doing.
life doing that unconsciously, almost as a survival skill. And that was
Yeah.
exhausting
But
and
I mean,
overwhelming.
I was even doing it with clients unconsciously, because I was like, this is just what I do, because it's just putting words to these things that it's like, we don't think about walking. We don't think, right, now pick up the right foot and now pick up the left foot.
Right? Or
It's
breathing.
just exactly like you're just feeling a person, because
Mm.
that is actually how we operate. And how much trust and faith do we put in that skill, and how much attention have we put in that skill, and what pulls us out of that skill. It's funny, I was telling you, Eileen, wasn't I, recently, that I ended up having a conversation at dinner time where I was telling my husband and my kids, it's like, this is how you read people. But like, what pulls us out of that is where so much of the attention is actually on us all the time. We're always thinking about us, like, did I say the right thing, and did I, and when we start taking that energy out of us and putting it elsewhere, we're then picking up on a load of information that was always there to be picked up on, that we might have missed in the past. And then you can actually do something nice with it, like help the
But some people
delivery
use
guy.
that kind of information for not nice things. But yes, you can
Yeah.
use it.
And to that point, you can also protect your energy from that as well. You
Mhm.
don't have to be that open book, and you don't have to be open for access, like that. You can sort of
Yeah,
shore up
sorry to
the
use my
cracks.
son again, but he grew up with this stuff and talks to me about it all the time. Like I sent my kids to camp. It was animal communication camp. And they had an animal communicator on a Zoom call for all the kids. And my son said as soon as she got on that call, she could feel that woman searching everybody's minds. And he was like, you don't get to come into my head. Like it's really that easy.
Yeah.
It's not magical. And he blocked her from coming into her head because he said, I don't know her. I don't know why she was searching everybody's heads, but I didn't want her in mine.
But I tell you why it's not that easy. It's not that easy because people don't talk about it. So
Right.
if you don't know where the off switch is, or that there is an off switch, then you don't get to press it. And so then
Mhm.
that's not easy.
Right.
Right? It's like, it's just that there's just not enough conversation around this kind of thing.
And not enough
So
words to explain it all.
no, or respect or appreciation of
Yeah.
it, but it's important, I would say, in my humble opinion. It's important, guys.
It is.
um, and so another thing that we wanted to talk about, which is all kind of lumped in with discernment, light and dark, and it's something that's been coming at us a lot as we've gone deeper into some of these soulful issues over the last few podcasts, is things like outside sources and books, and
Mm.
how to research when so much
You
feels
look
tainted.
this. I want to tell you, I gave away 130 books a couple of years ago, and I gave them to somebody who lives rurally and created her own little library for all of her neighbors, which I think is pretty cool.
That's so cool.
I was obsessed with books for years. I've read a million of them. Somebody asked me recently what spiritual books would I recommend, and I was confounded. I don't know what to say because I've read so many and I've evolved so far that I wouldn't go back and read most of those books, but I would never stop anybody else from reading them because that's how I got here. And I would just say, I don't know, Amy, if you have any particular books you would recommend, but beyond medical medium, those are the ones. Um, but oh, what are you drawn to? Read it and read it with the discernment in mind. It's you're not going to, you don't have to read something and take it on as though it's all true. Read it and figure out what part of it you think feels right to you and what part doesn't, or what part's bringing you. I'm obsessed with listening to Harry Potter. You know, some people think Harry Potter is evil. I heard a Catholic exorcist say they have a whole program for people who have to have exorcisms because of Harry Potter books. I don't think it's actually the books doing that, but whatever, I get it. You know, like, but I can turn them on while I'm doing the dishes and chopping vegetables, and I don't have to pay attention to the story because I know it, so I can come in and out. Whereas if I'm listening to a new book, I want to pay close attention, right? So, you know, think about what your reading material is, what you're listening to. Of course, it's important. And of course, you don't want to fill your head with darkness, but you don't have to be sucked in by darkness. Use your discernment.
Yeah, I don't have books that I would recommend, though I have read so many, and I have a similar bookshelf, which I don't want to show you because it's kind of partially stacked with supplements in front of it as well, and it needs a good sort out. And I have also given away tons of books in the past that I would wholeheartedly reject now, but they
Yes,
definitely like they led
but
me
I'm glad I
somewhere.
read them.
Yeah, they
I
and
understand it.
do you know what I've settled on now? Actually, is what I read now is fiction, and I feel like it teaches me the most I need to learn about life.
Good.
I have some books, I have some favorites, I have some classics. I love to read classics as well. And what it those stories teach you about what it is to be human. Those tender moments. I love books that make me cry, and I still read to my kids, even though they're older, and I'm known for ruining the endings of books because I'll be sobbing at the end. But like I sob because it speaks to what it is to be human, and it's these things that I find teach me so much about something that is being robbed from us, which is, in my opinion, guys, like what it is to be human, what
Mhm.
it is to care for another, what it is to put someone else, um, you know, to to try and save another soul or something like that. I think I find these kind of things are my greatest teachers at the moment. I don't want to be ignorant. Of course, I'm listening to podcasts and I'm watching this and that, and I'm forming opinions, but I find that it is life itself, and it's the stories, and it's the kind of fabric of humanity that I like to observe. I'm a real observer, like I've shared. Like I love to see the patterns because I just find that we have these things that motivate us, things that unlock us, things that, you know, themes that of things that are put upon us, and then I like to see where do people go when someone's faced with struggle. What do they choose versus what does that person choose? Like I find that fascinating. This is actually
I
my
also
academic
think
background as well. So
wherever your interest is, you can find it. Like half these books are architecture because I used to be in the architecture field, but I was also obsessed with buildings and beautiful buildings. I could do a whole dissertation and 10 podcasts about the spirituality that's shown in architecture. I'm not going to do that to you, but you know, like I can find the spirituality in almost anything.
yeah, and I was just saying, like, because I don't know if it cut
Cookbooks, you
off.
know, like
Yeah, but I spoke over you, but I was saying this is my academic background as well. Like I studied people, and my dissertation was on reality, and it was on like what is reality. And then this is back in like the early 2000s, and and like now where we are with social media and things like this, it's also relevant. But it was like this long, dark, lonely tunnel, and my professor was like, "Oh, you should come and work for me." And I was like, "No, I need to get out in the real world. I can't just like just obsess about behavior forever." But you know, that is something that really that I feel really drawn to. But I know I'm not alone in that. I know there's a ton of you guys out there that are also like right there, and like Eileen, just finding the spirituality in all kinds of different places and stuff. So, I mean, don't assume that you have to pick up a spiritual book or self-help book or something with like the appropriate label to find the lesson that you need. And nature is the most wonderful teacher. And part of, I'd say really the crux of my training, which is also the training Eileen did, and it's why I left my training, is that I've learned how to get the information myself, actually. I didn't need it to come through a teacher, which is actually really cool because then no one else is going to taint it. It's just between you and God. And that's a pretty direct line.
Actually, it's why I appreciated my teacher so much because out of the same institution, anytime anybody would ask her a question, she'd say, I don't know, ask your guides. I'm not going to answer that. She would not answer questions for people. She's like, you have her way of saying you have to work that out between you and God, you know,
And and just so people know, guides are the same, have the same definition as what
angels.
Anthony would describe as angels. So they
That's
might
right.
appear as animals or certain creatures, but they work 100% for
For
compassion and
God.
for God,
Yeah.
and they're here for help
And
and
you have to
healing.
ask for their help. They will not intervene because they respect free will. It's the shamanic term is guide. It's the
Yeah,
same exact thing as an angel. Yeah.
yeah. So I often say angels and interchange those words. But
Mm.
yeah, it's a journey worth taking to under this is when we say know thyself. This is what we mean, like having those connections built out. Know what you're capable of, not what you're doing right now, but what you're capable of. I mean, I'm just somewhere along the journey, and I'm capable of what life puts upon me. I didn't know I was as strong as I was to have come through certain things that I've come through until I did it. I didn't know that I could look inside of people and see things I see until I did. And I don't know what I'll be doing in 5 years' time. So it's like, but be open to understanding the big capacity that's what it is to be human.
Right. It's all
Yeah,
it's within all of you.
yeah. Well,
Really, the story of light and dark should really be the story of discernment in my head.
yeah, yeah.
It's
And
there, it's real. So what do you do about it? How do you figure out what's light, what's dark? How do you maneuver through it, through that jungle? Nature. You started to say this, nature is huge in that genre. And I find it funny, interesting, fascinating that um, I remember as a kid sitting on the front porch with my grandmother. She lived in, tiny houses are a thing now. She lived in a tiny house when she was old, and it was behind these other houses, so it was really cute. And I'd sit on the front porch with her, and we'd listen to the peepers and watch fireflies. I have that deep memory inside me, and now Anthony's telling us that's healing. Duh. Like,
yeah,
duh.
because we forgot what
We
it is to be a
forgot.
human.
Right.
We forgot to put good food in our bodies. We forgot to appreciate nature. We forgot how to connect to other people. We're just remembering in this stage, really, is all we're doing. And it's there right in your soul. It's ancient. It's old. I was walking, I've said this once before, but I was walking a little while ago and I looked up at the trees. And like when you look up at the trees and you see like the light come through the leaves. And I don't know how I know this, but it was just, this is what I knew. I was like, that's an old memory. And then I thought, I just looked up at that and it just felt such an old memory. And I was like, oh, hang on a minute. That is ancient. I'm talking a really, really old memory. And it's like I just had this flashback to a really old memory that felt so, so, so ancient. And it was so comforting to me because that's what I feel like we're doing. The darkness has steered this world off course and we're just bringing it back because we do remember. We do know. Our souls know. And if so, I feel like if we just get back to the soul, we'll be all right because the soul knows how to move forwards. The soul knows how we're supposed to live. So that is the work that Eileen and I are doing, is just come back to your soul. Come back to your soul. Remember that work is important. Remember that is part of life's purpose. And so, yeah, that's my list, Eileen.
I
I love
watched
that's my trick
so
is this is
I
to
just
just
yeah.
sorry.
Sorry, this years ago, maybe you'll know it, I don't know. I watched a movie. I think it's a British movie.
Yeah.
And it's called April something. I don't remember, but it's four women from London who pool their money and they rent. Uh, it doesn't take in modern times. Maybe it's like it was the early 1900s it took place in. And they rent an Italian villa on the ocean. And they go there without their, for many different reasons, without their husbands or their families. There's just these four middle-aged women. And they do things like there's a long scene where one of them is just floating in the water. And I'm like, I know that feeling. Like you're saying, like that's an ancient feeling. The
It is.
sun on you as you're floating in the ocean, and it's this calm ocean where she is. And they're just sitting in nature. It's probably a really boring movie to most people, but it spoke right to my soul.
And you're being told don't go out in the sun. It's
Right.
not good for you. So you
Right.
don't remember,
Right.
right?
Right. Exactly.
Exactly. Look out for that darkness, guys. But you see, look, the best lessons, they're in the stories. They're in the films. They're in
That's
the
right.
stories. Like it's there. It's there. It's in life. It's in life. It's the keys. The keys to survival, like the tricks and the tips and the hacks. It's all there.
Right. So that's the end of our questions, is it?
That's it. Done my list. Sorry, I'm in a silly mood because I am on day 9 of a 369. So my head's a little bit like, can we just go to bed? But then, I don't like to shut up for long. So here I am.
Oh, and you and I don't go very far, very long without laughing. So that's good.
No, and it'd been a little while. So we would do some random statement.
All right, everyone. We hope you get what you need out of these conversations. Please remember to like and subscribe. Please remember to hit reply to our newsletter. Please remember to sign up to our newsletter. Ask us anything you want. We want to hear from you. We want to talk about what you want to hear about. We want to answer your questions. And
Oh, you got your list of your own there. That's good,
yeah.
Eileen. Yeah. Just please be our friend.
And I asked somebody asked me they wanted to join our live Zoom conversations. We don't have any live Zoom conversations right now, but we do have coming our A Powerful
Yes.
You program. We're not exactly sure when we're releasing yet because we're reviving it, and there will be weekly live group coaching sessions in there. And so, if you are interested in being live with us for that kind of work, please get on our interest list. You can find that in our bios on social media. You can find that if you're watching this on YouTube or you're listening, you can find that link below. Get on the list.
And get the free meditation that goes with it.
Right.
And yeah, yeah, and because we are making this all shiny and new, it's going to be its best version yet.
Because
So
we actually, the part of the podcast that we miss the most is the face to face with you, the questions coming and the conversation back and forth. We love that. It's the thing that's missing on the podcast, and you will get that in this Powerful You program.
yeah, and that's why we always ask you to get in touch. Tell us a little bit about you and what it is you want us to talk about, because we need to open this up so it's not just me and Eileen, because we do plenty of that, me and Eileen talk. Yeah. Go on, hit
All
them with the
right.
line, Eileen.
Yes. Remember how powerful your soul is and don't give that power away to anybody. And we'll see you on the next podcast. We started Rewild Renew as a way to coach and empower others to heal and connect with their souls. The views and opinions you will hear on the Rewild Renew podcast are ours and are not meant to be medical advice. Please seek professional assistance if you feel you need it.